All right, let's talk about the future in Portuguese. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Future tense, complex grammar, ugh. But what if I told you there's a ridiculously simple formula, like a shortcut that Brazilians use all the time? Well, that's exactly what we're going to break down today. Let's do this.
Okay, let's dive right in with a little pop quiz. How would you say I'm going to practice in Portuguese? Go on, give it a shot in your head, because I promise you, in just a couple of minutes, the answer is going to feel, well, almost too easy.
All right, let's get into it. Section 1, the future formula. This is your key to talking about what's coming up.
So here's the big secret, and it's not much of a secret really. It works almost exactly like it does in English. You know how we say, I am going to do something? Well, in Portuguese, it's the same idea. You just need two little pieces. Eu vou, which just means I'm going, and then you stick any action verb right after it. That's it. That's the whole formula. Seriously, no crazy verb charts to memorize.
Okay, remember that question I asked you? I'm going to practice? Well, let's solve it right now with our new formula. You take eu vou and you add the verb for to practice, which is praticar. Put them together, and what do you get? Eu vou praticar. Simple as that.
And there you have it. I am going to practice. You just said it. It really is that easy. Okay, so we've got our basic building block. Now let's see how we can snap some other pieces onto it to make our sentences way more interesting and powerful.
So what if you want to say you'll practice a lot? Easy. You just tack on one little word at the end. Muito. So now you have eu vou praticar muito. See? Just like that, your sentence has a lot more punch. Okay, let's level up again. What if you're not just practicing, but you're starting to practice? There's a great little phrase for this. Começar a. It literally means to start to. So now you can say, eu vou começar a praticar muito mais. I'm going to start to practice a lot more. It's a subtle shift, but it feels more dynamic, right? You're talking about the start of something new. And here's where it gets really cool. This is the magic trick. That main verb, it's like a Lego brick. You can just swap out. Let's pull out praticar and plug in viajar, which means to travel. So you get, eu vou começar a viajar muito mais. I'm going to start to travel a lot more. See? The whole sentence structure stays the same. You just change the one word to change the whole meaning.
Let's try another one. The verb for to read is ler. So if you want to say, I'm going to start reading more books, you just pop that in. Eu vou começar a ler mais livros.
And let's add one final detail. How about what kind of books? We can add Portuguese in Portuguese. So now look at this full awesome sentence we've built. Eu vou começar a ler mais livros em português. I'm going to start reading more books in Portuguese. That's a real useful sentence you can go out and say right now. And remember, it all started with just those two simple words, eu vou.
Okay, awesome. You can now talk about what you're going to do. But you know, conversation isn't a monologue, right? It's a two-way street. So how do we turn these statements into questions to actually talk with people?
Well, you're going to love this because it is so simple. To make a statement about yourself, you say eu vou, right? To ask a question to someone else, you just switch it to você vai? Are you going? That's it. That's the entire change.
And just with that tiny swap, you can suddenly invite people to do things. Like, you could ask, você vai assistir esse filme comigo? Are you going to watch this movie with me? It's a perfect, natural way to make plans.
And remember that whole sentence we built before? The começar a structure? It works perfectly for questions too. We learned eu vou começar a, so you can just as easily ask someone else, você vai começar a aprender inglês? Are you going to start learning English? Boom, you're not just making statements anymore, you're having a real back and forth.
All right, last big grammar piece. Let's put this all together because we're going to move beyond just making plans and start talking about more complex, real-life stuff. Things like determination or even admitting something is hard. You know, the stuff that makes you sound like a real person when you're learning. Okay, here's a verb you're going to use all the time. Tentar. It means to try. And just adding this one word makes your language so much more human. It shows effort. It shows you're being realistic. For example, Eu vou tentar praticar meu português com você. I'm going to try to practice my Portuguese with you. It just sounds so much more authentic, doesn't it?
Now check this one out. Honestly, this might be the most important sentence for any language learner ever. Português não é fácil, mas eu vou tentar aprender. Portuguese isn't easy, but I'm going to try to learn. Wow, look at what you're doing there. You're admitting it's a challenge, but you're also showing your determination to push through it. And you're doing it all with the simple grammar we just covered.
You could even shorten it into a personal mantra, right? Não vai ser fácil, mas eu vou tentar. It's not going to be easy, but I'm going to try. And that is the real magic of this formula. It's not just for scheduling coffee dates, it's for expressing who you are and how you face challenges. So, let's recap. We've got the formula down, we know how to build bigger sentences, and we know how to ask questions. But now we get to the single most important part of all of this. What happens next for you? Because at the end of the day, all this grammar theory boils down to one simple truth. É importante praticar umas pessoas. It is important to practice with people. These aren't just rules in a textbook. They're tools. They're meant for connecting with other human beings, and they don't do any good just sitting in your head.
Which, of course, brings me to my final question, and I'm going to use the exact structure we learned together today. So, você vai começar a praticar? Are you going to start practicing? Because I really hope you see now just how ready you are to get out there and start talking. You've got this. Good luck.